Here you're gonna find something you will definitely want to know. What brawlers you can most consistently win and gain trophies with in the newest mode in Brawl Stars, Lone Star. I got together with some of the best players in Brawl Stars to give you exactly that. Let's do it. Now we're gonna rank every brawler from 1 to 29 and put them in a tier S through F. Of course, as you get higher in ranking and higher in tier, those brawlers should, for most people, be able to more consistently gain trophies, either because they're less map specific, they're just a generally stronger brawler, or, you know, of course, we're gonna get into that for each brawler. But of course, for everyone, it could be slightly different, and just because a brawler is lower in tier or ranking doesn't mean you can't win with it. Just for the average person, it'll be less consistent. Now, as I said, some of the best players in Brawl Stars helped me make this tier list. Definitely check these guys out if you want to learn more from them. A lot of these guys stream on Twitch or have YouTube videos. You can find the links to follow these guys down below in the description. All right, starting at number 29 and in the F tier, the worst brawler in Lone Star. It's gotta be Frank. God, this is a bad mode for Frank. If only people would just sit still and let them hit him, or let him hit them. Ah, man, he does that actually. Yeah, this is definitely not a good mode for him. He doesn't get many hits and people don't. It's way too big of a map. People are constantly moving, running away. He can't really chase after people. Don't think I need to explain this one too much. Number 28, also in the F tier, it's going to be Nita. Nita, this is also a really bad mode for Nita. Nita just doesn't do enough damage. Having high burst damage is really key for this mode so people don't steal your kills. Nita does not have that, and Nita's bear is especially not very useful in this mode. Such a wide map, people can just run away and go in a different direction. It doesn't really force people that often. Again, not a good mode for Nita. All right, on to the D tier. These brawlers, I still don't recommend that much, but they definitely can have specific situations where they can work decently well. At number 27, it's gonna be Poco. Poco just doesn't have enough damage per hit, doesn't have the high burst damage to really get many kills. Of course, you can play it smart, come in at the end of other people's fights and try to hit multiple people at the same time and try to steal some kills, and that can work not that bad with Poco, but that's really the main way you have to try and play Poco. Really doesn't have enough damage to do that well in this mode. 26, and you know what, we'll do 25 at the same time because these brawlers are pretty dang similar. 26 is Penny, 25 is Jessie. Now look, these guys, again, don't have enough burst damage and they even have less health than Poco. They do have more range though on the other hand, but their bounce ability, not that useful in this mode. It is on a showdown map, but there's no showdown boxes for them to utilize their bounces or their splash ability. Their turrets, not as useful in this mode either because it's such a wide map. People are constantly moving and they can run away from that turret if they don't like that situation. So not always that useful and you're not always gonna get that much value out of it. These brawlers don't have enough power to get that many kills. They're definitely usable, but they're not that great. At 24, and the last brawler in the D tier, it's gonna be Barley. Now, Barley as a thrower, just again, you're seeing a theme here. Brawlers who are really low in damage are not that great typically in Lone Star. Now, Barley can be really useful on Hot Maze, a very thrower-oriented map, really good walls. But even with the extra toxic star power for Barley, Barley just doesn't do enough damage. Barley is a brawler who's really good at controlling the map, keeping people from going in certain directions, and really when people are going into Barley. But in this mode, you often have to chase other people. Barley doesn't have the range or the damage to effectively do that, and this is not a good map for controlling brawlers. So yeah, Barley, not that great here. All right, now in the C tier, these brawlers you can definitely be more consistent with, but you probably have to play them really smart, or they might be a little map specific. At 23, it's gonna be Tara. Tara, with her super, definitely has the ability to get kills, but her super charge is so slow, and if you ever miss one super, you are kind of screwed, and you're gonna have a bad game unless you're just stealing kills at the end of fights. That's pretty much what you're gonna rely on for Tara, is charging up that super and using that to just chain kills. But if you miss, sorry, too bad. At 22, it's gonna be Bull. Bull, shotgun brawler, one of the shortest ranges in the game. If you're playing Bull, you're basically a bush camper, and that's the main way you have to play him. He's really bad at coming in and stealing kills, which is an important ability to have in this game mode, and his super is not especially useful. It's really hard to use in a super open and wide map. to really use it to try and get kills. People can oftentimes avoid it if they're smart about it. So Bull, not a great brawler for this mode. 21, still C tier. It's going to be El Primo. Really similar situation. Both these brawlers aren't going to be charging the super that much. El Primo can definitely use his super a lot better than Bull's, especially if you have that speed star power, although the damage one isn't that bad either here. But if you can get that super with El Primo, then you can try to use it to chain and, you know, get more supers off of that and get kills, and you can do well in that case. But of course, with the shortest range in the game, you're probably not going to be getting that many supers throughout a match. At 20, it's going to be Dynamite. Now, Dynamite's similar to Barley in that he's a thrower, and it's hard to chase after people and get kills. But of course, he's a much higher damage version than Barley, so he can get kills a little bit more consistently. And of course, on Hot Maze, that is going to be a really good map for him. Definitely recommend him there. Some other maps, it's going to be a lot more situation specific. If it looks like a really wide open map, definitely try to not take Dynamite, or really got to play him very specifically. If you're a really good Dynamite, you can definitely make use of him here because he can have high damage, but if you're not hitting your shots consistently, he's a pretty bad brawler to play. At 19 and still in the C tier, it's going to be Shelly. Now, Shelly is, of course, the premier bush camper, and there are some bush camper maps, and she is the arguable best one at it, so she definitely has that edge. And of course, she has a little bit more range than some other of the short, you know, close range fight brawlers, where she can charge up her super a little bit easier, and she can try to steal kills a little bit easier as well. At 18, and the last brawler in the C tier, is going to be Tick. Now, Tick, I think, is the easiest thrower to use, although he's still not that strong. He has the longest range of all the throwers, and his super can chase after people, so it's a little bit less hit or miss, and you can definitely get a little bit more kills that way. But again, still not a very consistent brawler. He's not always going to be finishing off kills very easily, even though he does have that long range. All right, now we're in the B tier. These brawlers are definitely getting more consistent, and if you play them smart, you should be doing pretty well with them on average, unless you're playing just a really bad map. At 17, it's going to be Rosa. Rosa, especially with her star power for healing in the bush, can be really aggressive a lot of times, and with that super can join in on fights, and there are some big fights in Lone Star, and Rosa can definitely come in and put out a beating a lot of times, especially with that super. She can go in and get a lot of stars at once, and definitely, look, that's the one great thing about Lone Star. Sometimes you can play really aggressive brawlers, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you're dying a lot, because all you're trying to do is get as many kills as possible. The deaths don't really matter that much, unless, of course, they all go to the leader, but even then, it's not the end of the world. Even if you do have a lot of stars and you die, there's a great chance it goes to not the leader more often than not. At 16, it's going to be BB. BB, one of the strongest brawlers in the game. It's not necessarily her best mode, but she's still pretty solid at it. She's got a ton of health. She's got a great defensive ability. And in general, she does a lot of damage per swing. She can 2-shot or even 3-shot a lot of brawlers not too hard. She can hit multiple at the same time, and her super very long range. But if you do have that home run ability, it is great for this mode. Not only for running around and surviving, but going to different situations and just finding kills more quickly. She can be pretty solid here, although she's not amazing. At 15, it's gonna be Carl. Carl is just a really solid brawler. It's maybe not the best mode for him, but he's got really high health, decent range, decent damage, a super that can finish off people, and he's not really map specific. You can use him on pretty much every single map, and he's gonna do pretty well. He's probably not gonna be one of the best ones, but he's definitely not gonna be one of the worst ones either. Just check your bushes, make sure you don't run into any tanks, and you should do pretty solid with Carl. At 14, it's gonna be Pam. Now in this mode, this is actually my favorite place to use Pam's damage star power, Mama Squeezin'. It makes Pam a really threatening brawler, not only healing yourself up, but you can engage in close range fights. 500 damage per second with that turret is a lot. And Pam did just get a damage buff to her main star power. She's got a lot of solid attributes, really high health. She can have decent range and high damage from medium to close range. Pam can be a really solid brawler for this mode. She's not going to be one of the best brawlers, but if you play her smart, you can do really well with Pam. At 13 in the B tier, it's going to be Rico. Now, Rico, of course, is one of the best damage-dealing brawlers in the game. Really high burst damage, long range, so solid attributes for this mode. So, of course, it makes sense. Rico's going to be pretty solid here. Now, the biggest weakness with Rico is definitely his health. So he can be surprised, and it's hard for him to engage in long fights. which is definitely something that can happen in this mode because there's a lot of people constantly running around. There's a lot of fights going on. So Rico's going to be able to engage in a lot of fights, but he might be dying a decent amount as well. And of course, you don't want to have to respawn and keep on engaging in fights, but he's a very solid option, can get a lot of kills, high potential. At 12 and in the B tier, it's going to be Crow. Now, Crow I actually really like with this mode, especially if you have Carry and Crow. You can join in on fights and help try to steal some kills, although admittedly with Crow he is a pretty low damage per shot brawler, which is his definite weakness in this mode. He does have long range and a super that you can use effectively to get kills, but he doesn't have much burst damage and he's not always going to be able to finish off brawlers. So he can join in on a lot of fights, he can definitely do a lot of overall damage, but he may not always be finishing off brawlers, which can definitely be a problem. Although if you can farm up your super, you can definitely do really solid with Crow. At 11 and the last brawler in the B tier, it's gonna be Beau. Now Beau also has a lot of solid attributes going for him, right? He's got really high health, he's got long range, and he's got decent damage. Now definitely not a very consistent brawler, partly because his mines are not always that useful in this mode. It's such a wide open map, and if you throw down those mines, a lot of times people are just like, all right, I'm just gonna go around them because it's such a wide open map. Like, it's not usually that big of a deal. A lot of times, you know, it might protect you in a fight, but then it's not useful again for the rest of the fight, and you're just kind of, maybe you sit there hoping someone runs into it and you get lucky, but more often than not, that doesn't happen. He does have long range and good damage though, so he is definitely a pretty good brawler. All right, now we're in the top 10 and the A tier. These brawlers should definitely be doing pretty well, and if you're playing them smart, you should be consistently getting decent to good finishes almost every time. At number 10, it's gonna be Mortis. Now, you do really need Coiled Snake for this to work, but if you have Mortis with Coiled Snake, you can consistently deal 3 to 4k damage in a really short burst and be getting good kills. As a Mortis, you're going for brawlers in that 3 to 4,000 health range, and you're just trying to burst down those brawlers really quickly, looking for good matchups. Of course, you want to avoid every single tank. You can try to join in fights at the end and finish brawlers off really well with Mortis. This is where you do really want that Coiled Snake, so you can really join in on those fights suddenly and go after brawlers that you have good matchups against. If you go after brawlers in those criteria, you should be doing really well with Mortis. At number 9, it's gonna be 8-Bit. Now 8-Bit, as a slow brawler, that's definitely not a great attribute for him in this mode, but he has a ton of damage and a long range, and of course, those are great things for this mode. So 8-Bit is a pretty consistent brawler. Followed up by, at number 8, it is Colt. What a surprise, right? He also has really high damage, maybe not quite as much range as 8-Bit, but he's also more maneuverable, so he's got some good things going for him. Colt, come on, it makes a lot of sense for this mode. He's got great attributes for it. He's a really solid brawler here. At number 7 and the A tier, it's gonna be Daryl. Now Daryl, he is a close range brawler, but he has that automatically charging super, and he can just go after brawlers with good matchups. You're gonna play it pretty similar to Mortis, where you're gonna be rolling in on brawlers who you have a good matchup against. You're probably not rolling in on many close range brawlers, any tanks. Those are going to be not great matchups for Daryl unless they're low health, but he can roll in on a lot of different fights as long as they're within range of his super. Those are usually good times to roll in and try and get a kill. Now at number 6 and the A tier, it's going to be Spike. Spike is one of the highest damage dealing brawlers in the game, one of the best burst damage brawlers, so he is great in this mode. He also has good range, so it definitely makes sense for him. He can also even have decent chip damage if you're trying to attack someone who's escaping with low health. He also has the extra crazy long range to try to finish off brawlers or even try to steal kills as well. So he has a great ability in that regard in this mode. At number 5, it's gonna be the newest brawler, Sandy. Sandy, I mean, look, got a 12-second super long range invisibility super that doesn't take many hits to charge and can join in on fights at the end of them and try to hit multiple people at the same time to try to steal kills. Look, Sandy is a really good brawler for this mode. Now, the short range is definitely sometimes a problem, but with only 5 hits to charge Sandy's super, it's not really that big of a deal because you can just use that incredibly wide invisibility and go ahead and charge up your next super or get more kills. At number 4 and the last brawler in the A tier, it's gonna be Brock. Brock, he is incredibly long-range brawler who does good damage, and his super can hit multiple people, and again, also does good damage. So Brock, he is a really solid brawler for this mode, not very map specific. He also has good burst damage because you can spam those rockets in close range if you ever need to, and you will consistently get hits with them. They have a wide explosion radius, so Brock, really solid brawler for this mode. All right, now we're in the top 3 and the S tier. These brawlers are very consistent and have a high ability to get a lot of stars throughout a game. At number 3, it's gonna be Gene. Gene, of course, has that super that can pull people in and get kills when he wants, but he also has the range and the ability to charge up his super fairly easily, which is a very key part of playing Gene. And on top of that, he can also use that long range to try and steal kills whenever he can, or just be really annoying. He's hard to deal with. He has good damage, great range, but it's mainly that super. And hey, go ahead, auto aim that super. I'm telling you, a lot of times it's a pretty solid way to play it, and you can do pretty well with Gene. At number 2, and then in the S tier, it's gonna be Piper. Now, I do not recommend playing Piper on Hot Maze or an Island Invasion, but outside of those 2 maps, Piper is definitely one of the best brawlers for Lone Star. It makes a lot of sense, right? Piper was probably the best brawler in Bounty, and here we are in basically solo Bounty. And again, Piper is one of the best brawlers. Not a big surprise. She is great at getting kills, incredibly long range, high burst damage, and with snappy sniping, even though it's been nerfed, it's still a really good star power. Piper is definitely one of the best brawlers in this mode. But the number 1 best brawler, in my opinion, by far most consistent brawler in this game mode, it's gotta be Leon. Leon, with that super ability, you can just keep on chaining supers in this game mode. Now, maybe in solo showdown, you used to not use it that much, but people keep on respawning, and there's a lot of people across the map. A lot of times you can use that super and just go and find a kill and use that again and get the next super. It's crazy. You can chain super so well with Leon and just join in on fights, get easy kills. He is definitely the best brawler in Lone Star. If you enjoyed this, definitely check out other great tier lists that will help you become a better Brawl Stars player right over there. That is going to be it for today's video, though. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.